Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Carrie Dunst.
An update on the 2 assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump. The acting director of the Secret Service reveals more.
And the House just passed an amended Presidential Security Act. NTD's Luis Martinez is in Washington, D.C. with the latest.
Israel has confirmed the killing of a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted airstrike near Beirut. The commander was wanted by the U.S. for his role in deadly bombing attacks in the 1980s.
The Georgia Board of Elections approves new voting rules requiring that paper ballots be hand-counted on Election Day. The new policy comes just 45 days before the election. We have the details next.
Former President Trump makes his case to Jewish Americans on why he thinks they should support him in November. He addressed rising incidents of anti-Semitism in America during a gathering in Washington, D.C. on Thursday.
Vice President Harris affirms she's a gun owner and says if somebody breaks into her house, they're getting shot. That and other takeaways from the live-streamed event with Oprah Winfrey.
And NTD's 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition kicked off its preliminary round in New York yesterday as singers made their way from 8 countries to perform.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe Jr. just held a press conference to provide updates on security lapses relating to the shooting of former President Donald Trump at a campaign rally in July.
He admitted that there is a failure on the Secret Service part and needs a paradigm shift. And there is a communication deficiency and an over-reliance on mobile devices. Information was also siloed. Here's the part where he answered questions about a second assassination attempt at Trump's Florida golf club on Sunday. Take a look.
Sir, given all the attention and scrutiny related to these events, do you believe your highest level protectees will now need to campaign differently in how they organize their events and in how they live their daily lives, things like trips to golf courses or recreational time? Will they have to live differently in order to be safe?
Well, ultimately, Kelly, it's the responsibility of the Secret Service to make sure that we provide a secure environment for our protectees. We want them to make sure that they can live their lives with some type of normalcy, but they must do so with us providing the highest levels of protection, which we have been doing since July 13th. And so it's ultimately our responsibility to make sure that wherever our protectees go, we are creating a safe environment. And that comes back to us being able to use our methodologies, to use our redundancies, our systems that we have in place to create those secure environments.
Those are organized or set up, outdoor events, that kind of thing?
So since July 13th, we have been securing successfully outdoor events. And what you're seeing is an increased use of assets, increased use of ballistic glass. So we certainly make sure that when they are out there at an outdoor venue, that we are using our protective methodologies to create that safe environment.
Hello, Director. Thank you for taking the time. Could you just kind of go into a bit more detail about the conversations you had with Trump campaign staff about the selection of the Butler site? The report says that Secret Service agents saw it as a challenge, and the staff wanted to have the rally there. Did the staff go against your recommendation? Can you speak to exactly what was said and what the outcome was?
So. Listen, the staff chooses a site, and ultimately it's on the Secret Service to secure it. So when the site was selected, the advance team went about identifying areas of concern. The AGR building was one of those hazards that was identified. But let me just be clear, Maria, ultimately it is the Secret Service's responsibility to secure a site. We certainly have conversations, and it doesn't matter whether it's a campaign staff or a White House staff. We have conversations, and we have very good working relationships with those staffs. But ultimately, it is the Secret Service's responsibility to secure a site.
Your comments?
Director, thank you. Based on your review and analysis, what is the reason, what's the best explanation for why there was not law enforcement personnel covering the roof, physically on the roof itself, or making sure someone could not get on top of the roof. And the follow-up question would be, how disappointed are you in what you described as deficiencies in diligence?
Sure. So ultimately, Pierre, we have to be very direct and clear when we're talking to our state and local counterparts. With respect to Butler, I think what the Mission Assurance Review has identified is that there was that lack of clarity. And I can tell you since July 13th, when I've been out on the road and I've watched field offices and I gave guidance upon becoming the acting director to the field, we have to be very clear when we're talking to our state and local partners. We value those relationships with them. We need them to be assisting us and be shoulder to shoulder with us. And it appears that there was that lack of clarity with respect to Butler. And go again with your follow-up here.
So there was a lack of clarity that roof should be secure, period, full stop.
There was discussion about how the roof was going to be secured, and I think what it came back to is we should have challenged how that mechanism was being implemented. Meaning, we should have been more direct. We cannot be overly deferential to state and local law enforcement. Ultimately, it's our responsibility, and so we just have to be very clear when we're asking them for support. They want to help us, and what we found is that in this. They in the mission assurance interviews, it became apparent that in comparison to prior visits to that area, there was one prior visit in 2020, that there was a lack of assertion with respect to what exactly state and locals would have to require or would be required to support that advance.
Simply, how disappointed are you when you see that, as the report states, that some personnel did not follow Secret Service protocols?
Well, I'm not going to get into employee disciplinary matters, but what I can tell you is the men and women of the Secret Service are dedicated professionals. And so while July 13th is a failure, we're not proud of it, but we certainly have been rising to this moment. The men and women in the field are rising to this moment. They are working tirelessly to make sure that the people we protect are safe. And so I will never be disappointed in our folks. I am proud of this agency. I am proud of our people.
Hi. Thanks so much for doing this. On the question of the AGR buildings, is there a process that's standard for the day of the event that somebody from the Secret Service looks around and makes sure all of the assets are where they are? And since the roof of the AGR building was such a glaring omission, why didn't anybody raise that issue at the time? Or secondly, in the security room, look and say, I don't see any local police in here. How are we going to hear them?
Right, and I think that was a failure to challenge our assumptions. The assumption that local police were going to have more of a presence in that AGR building. Getting back to your question, there is that diligence that has to be done by the site agents to make sure that, hey, all of the assets are in place. And so there was an assumption that they had it covered, but there clearly was not that follow-up to make sure.
But is there a process that you look around and like a punch list and check it off? And
it is part of the principles of our advance and our protective methodologies.
Okay, and secondly, just to follow up on the campaign question, you said it's ultimately the Secret Service's responsibility. So when there's a disagreement between the campaign and the Secret Service on a security issue, who has the last word?
So it's not about disagreement, it's about a negotiation. They certainly don't want any harm to come to their principal, and so they respect us. And so usually what it boils down to is escalating it up to a supervisor and a senior staff level. What I can tell you is that if there were discrepancies, and there were, regarding how the site was supposed to have been secured, how supervisors were briefed, and supervisors reported in their mission assurance interviews that they envisioned harder assets to be able to secure that line of sight, to be able to mitigate anything that might have been looking in or would have created an openness on the site at the Butler Farm Show. And so on the morning of, if there were those deficiencies, they were never escalated up to the supervisors to be able to resolve.
On a related topic, this morning, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would see the U.S. Secret Service protection of presidential candidates increased. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, joins us live now with more on this story. Luis, it's good to see you. Starting us off, what is the Enhanced Presidential Security Act that just passed on the House floor? Tell us more.
Well, this bill that was voted on this morning and passed unanimously would see the Secret Service protection detail of presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates be at the same level as the president and the vice president. So it's interesting to see that 405 congressmen voted for this bill. No one voted against it. That also means that 30 congressmen did not vote today, whether they were not present or for other reasons. It will also be interesting to see if the Senate picks up this bill and if it's passed in the Senate, whether the president will sign it. But it's, of course, part of what's going on, ongoing investigations, the attempted assassinations of former President Donald Trump, and the concern shared by lawmakers to increase the security detail of the presidential candidate of both parties.
And we just heard there the director of the Secret Service giving an update on the investigations into the Trump assassination attempts. Do you have more on that? What's the status in Congress on these ongoing investigations?
Well, the House of Representatives has a bipartisan task force that was voted and passed also unanimously. Today, I spoke with the Democratic ranking member of that task force, Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado. Let's listen to what he had to say about the next steps in this investigation.
The task force has asked for additional resources because we want this to be timely. We're going to need more lawyers, more staff to conduct the investigation and do those interviews. And that does require a House vote to do it.
So most likely next week, we will see a vote on the House floor to expand the scope of the bipartisan task force in the House of Representatives investigating the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump to include the second alleged attempt that we saw last week in Florida. And we also heard from Congressman Jason Crow that they will ask for more resources, staff, and lawyers. There's another investigation in the House, an independent investigation led by Congressman Corey Mills of Florida with a group of fellow Republican congressmen. Let's listen what he had to say about the investigations thus far. You have confidence in the task force investigation. You're conducting your own independent review of the assassination attempts. Do you have confidence that they're going to do a good job?
Well, it's difficult for any independent investigation task force or even our Florida governor from doing investigations when you got the FBI and others who are unwilling to cooperate. There's information that still needs to be led, and that's why we're relying so heavily on our whistleblowers.
It will also be interesting to see if next week, during the last days of Congress being in session, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate will include in their proposal of a continuing resolution to fund government through an extended period of time, more funding for the Department of Homeland Security to then, of course, help the Secret Service meet the gap in personnel and technical assets that Acting Director Ronald Rowe mentioned today during the press conference. Back to you.
All right, Luis, thank you. Reporting there from Washington, D.C.
The Israeli Defense Forces have reported killing a high-level Hezbollah terrorist in Lebanon. His name is Ibrahim Akil.
He and other high-level Hezbollah operatives were killed today in an airstrike in Beirut. Akil was the head of Hezbollah's operations unit and was responsible for bombing attacks, air defense, and other military fields as well. Akil was wanted by the United States for his role in the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut that killed 63 people. And he was also wanted for his role in the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks that killed 241 U.S. service members.
Israel said Akil was currently planning another terrorist attack for Hezbollah terrorists to infiltrate Israeli communities and murder innocent civilians. Hezbollah, meanwhile, escalated their rocket fire at Israel that began shortly after October 7th. It fired over 100 rockets across the border today.
Joining us now to discuss these latest developments and what they mean for the war is Gabriel Nerona, Executive Director of Polaris National Security. He's also a fellow at the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs and a former State Department advisor on Iran. It's good to see you. I want to start off with this. Israel said that it is beginning this new phase in its war in the north against Hezbollah. How does today's strike in Beirut change the course of the war in your view?
What I'm hearing is that Israel took out as many as 20 commanders of what are called the Radwan forces here, which are their elite commandos, the shock troops who would have gone into Israel. Hezbollah has a history of digging tunnels into Israeli territory and kidnapping Israeli citizens as hostage. Again, I think Hezbollah has learned a lot from Hamas about the value of hostages in this effort. And so by Israel taking out these commanders, it's neutralizing a really key tool that Hezbollah had in their arsenal. What I'm expecting now, though, is that we're going to enter a much more aggressive phase of this Israeli-Hezbollah conflict, possibly with massive airstrikes against Hezbollah, really trying to clean out and reduce Hezbollah's power and their ability to threaten northern Israel altogether. Israelis have been evacuated from the north for almost a year now. In the Israeli consideration, that's simply unacceptable. They're not willing to have that as the status quo, and so they're taking strong steps here to prevent that from being a permanent situation.
Now, if this were to escalate as you do think it will, does Hezbollah have the military prowess right now to do this? Do they have the funds and the weapons to fight?
Hezbollah has one of the largest missile and rocket arsenals in the Middle East, estimated at around 140,000 of those munitions. But the question is, how many of those would they actually be able to deploy in the event of a war? How many would be destroyed by Israel in its first days of the war? And then the other question is, how many can they actually fire at any given time? This is going to be a war between Hezbollah to see how many of these munitions they can fire off, how quickly, and for Israel, how fast they can degrade them. At the end of the day, Hezbollah is a very advanced force, but Israeli military superiority is almost guaranteed. So again, for Hezbollah, if there is a war, they're not going to win it. The question is simply how much of a price are they able to impose on Israeli civilians and cities? I think the big consideration is whether the Iron Dome is going to be sufficient to protect Israel from these incoming munitions, or whether they'll be completely overwhelmed. My fear is they'll be overwhelmed and you'll see significant damage to Israeli cities that we haven't seen so far in the last year of conflict.
Now, staying on the topic of ammunition, where exactly is Hezbollah getting all these weapons from? Is it Iran, or are there other supporters as well?
We know that Iran has ferried over thousands of rockets and missiles, but more importantly, they've built workshops. They've sent over technical experts, scientists, for Hezbollah to create their own factories, workshops, to be able to create these in-house using their own supply chains that they can get chemicals and other munition supplies for. So Hezbollah has been able to do a lot of this on their own. Now, Hezbollah Lebanon has a border with Turkey. That's a key conduit for materials as well. They're next to Syria with the Assad regime. So there's a lot of options they have to be able to get warfighting materials. It's a much harder target to isolate than Gaza, which was contained almost entirely by Israel with a small border on the south of Egypt. So this is, again, much harder target to deprive of war-making materials.
Yes, and I want to talk a little bit more about Gaza. Biden has come out to say, that he's still trying to get this ceasefire deal out, but that, of course, it's not smooth sailing, of course. Will we see a ceasefire, do you think, before Biden leaves office in January?
There's a degree to which this isn't up to Biden at all. He can be a great negotiator. He can be a terrible negotiator. But if the Israelis and Hamas don't want to reach an agreement, they're not going to. From everything I've seen, there's nothing that can get Prime Minister Netanyahu to agree to those final concessions that Hamas is demanding. Hamas, meanwhile, has rejected 5 or 6 or 7 different agreements that Israel has come and negotiated with them. So Hamas has been very intransigent, and in Israel's eyes, they're not going to allow Hamas to continue to exist after this conflict is over. That's a red line for the Israeli public, for Israel's leaders. And so, no, I'm pretty pessimistic. I don't think there's going to be any deal before next year.
Now, Gabriel, tell us a bit more about what each presidential nominee is proposing to do in relation with this conflict. Obviously, it's been a big topic of conversation in this election season, and what your assessment of their approaches are.
So Kamala Harris's view is that there needs to be a grand bargain here. There needs to be a diplomatic end to this resolution, which really means saving Hamas from destruction. President Trump's view has been that Hamas cannons should be destroyed. But he's also said that he believes that this conflict has gone on too long and wants to be wrapped up. Knowing a lot of Trump's advisors, I think the perception is they want Israel to win fast and then have this be over with so that Israel can focus on other fronts like Lebanon, like the Islamic Republic of Iran, and get those situations sorted as well, rather than having this conflict drag out in the Middle East.
All right, Gabriel Nerona, Executive Director at Polaris National Security. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Georgia's election board voted today on a new hand count rule. The policy requires millions of ballots to be manually tallied. The state election board convened a meeting this morning.
History is watching. The world is watching. What we do here today matters, and what we do here today is important. The idea that you're not going to listen to the individuals that are charged with conducting elections is absurd to me. For the board members that want to implement these rules, because they're most likely going to implement them because they have the numbers, I challenge you to go into any county in the state of Georgia and to do the rules that you're passing on today. Work as a poll worker all day and then count the ballots.
Most of the recently enacted and proposed rules have been brought by presumably well-meaning citizens who are in many cases not electoral professionals or experts. Most of their concerns are based on highly unlikely what-if scenarios rather than anything evidence-based. There is a fine line between citizen oversight and citizen micromanagement. And some of these rules, particularly those that specify how many ballots should be in a pile for counting, for example, clearly cross that line.
The rule requires 3 poll workers in each of Georgia's 6,500 precincts to open sealed ballot boxes. They will then begin hand counting starting as soon as election night. Another rule requires a hand count for any ballot box with over 1,500 ballots during early voting. Georgia is the only state with this rule. Voting rights advocates warn it could cause delays, errors, and increase election challenges. Supporters say it will ensure ballot scanning machines are accurate. The voting rights organization Black Voters Matter continued its 6-day journey across Georgia yesterday. It made a stop at Cross Keys High School in Atlanta. Organizers and those in attendance discussed the importance of mobilizing young voters.
So you are on the We Fight Back tour. We Fight Back tour is our overall theme for this year. We are, mobilizing communities, talking to voters, engaging folks, building power around that theme, making sure that folks understand that they do in fact have voting power.
We're excited because of the energy that these students have, and people tend to overlook our younger electorates. So to have the opportunity to engage with them and listen to the issues and things that are concerning to them, and then making sure that they have the best information possible to make those informed decisions for themselves, it means everything to us.
Georgia is so incredibly important in this election. We actually have over 100,000 registered voters that do not vote from the Black community. So we're really trying to go about these stops and making sure that everyone knows that their voice really matters.
I think it's very important because a lot of times our voices are not actually heard. And so once our voices actually get heard, I think it'll be like a major change.
And we want to be able to raise those issues with them and connect that back to the ballot. Who pulls the lever of power? Not just at the top of the ticket, but at the bottom of the ticket in your local elections.
In-person voting for this year's presidential election is now already underway in 3 states.
Voters lined up to cast their ballots in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia. In Minnesota, voters can cast early in-person ballots at county and city election sites until the day before the election. The state will begin counting ballots 19 days before November 5th. In Virginia, the director of Fairfax County Elections said roughly a third of local voters cast ballots on Election Day in 2020. The rest voted by mail or early and in person. In South Dakota, the top election official in Minnehaha County is planning for 80% turnout. An early voting area was set up in the county administration building in Sioux Falls. According to the Pew Research Center, just over a quarter of voters cast ballots in person before Election Day in 2020. About a dozen more states will begin early voting by mid-October. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined a request from the Green Party to get Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein on the ballot in the battleground state of Nevada. The Green Party argued its candidates were ripped from the ballot in Nevada because campaign workers used an incorrect form to collect signatures needed to ensure Stein's place on the ballot. In filing this week, Nevada election officials said it was too late to interrupt ballot printing for the November election because ballots for military and overseas voters must be mailed by this Saturday under federal law. A lower court in the state sided with the Green Party, but the Nevada Supreme Court ruled this month Stein should be kept off the ballot. The state Supreme Court said the Nevada Secretary of State's office provided the Green Party with the incorrect form used in the signature collection process, which was a mistake.
Coming up, former President Trump makes his case to Jewish Americans on why he thinks they should be supporting him in November. On Thursday, he addressed rising incidents of anti-Semitism in America during a gathering in Washington, D.C.
Vice President Harris affirms she's a gun owner and says if someone breaks into her house, they're getting shot. That and other takeaways from a live-streamed event with Oprah Winfrey after the break.
New to Medicare? Recently moved or losing coverage? Then let us help break it down for you. First up, we have Medicare Part A. Consider your hospital insurance as your safety net, covering inpatient hospital stays, skilled nursing facilities, hospice care, and some home health care. It's the help for your peace of mind, ensuring that you get the care you may need when you need it. And now let's talk about Medicare Part B, your medical insurance. This is your key to most preventative services, outpatient care and doctor visits, from flu shots to screenings. Part B, you're at the forefront of proactive health care. If you enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan, the plan may provide all of your Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B coverage, and it is designed with you in mind, providing a wide array of coverage options for personalized care. Review your Medicare coverage options, ensuring it aligns with your evolving healthcare needs, from flu shots to screenings. Call 800-939-1759. That's 800-939-1759.
Come to the Mathis Design Studio, the premier destination for designer furniture. See the latest trends from top brands with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Whether you're redecorating a single room or furnishing an entire home, we have the styles you'll love. Plus, enjoy fast, complimentary delivery. Visit us now for exclusive discounts and let us help make your dream home a reality for less than you ever imagined at the Mathis Design Studio.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The walls surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little bit of that in their own life, of, you know, the steadfast calmness and something to hold on to. It's definitely an inner peace in the midst of something very chaotic, and for a lot of people right now, the whole world is very, very chaotic. So I guess that's another reason why so many people are very drawn to this.
Welcome back. The House passed a bipartisan bill today that aims to increase security for presidential nominees Harris and Trump and their running mates as well.
It required a 2/3 majority to pass due to an expedited process. The House voted unanimously in favor of the bill.
This measure comes after 2 recent assassination attempts on former President Trump.
The bill requires the Secret Service to use consistent standards to determine the number of agents needed to protect presidents, vice presidents, and major candidates. Joining us now to discuss the bill is National Security and Counterintelligence Specialist Casey Fleming. He's CEO of counterintelligence firm Black Ops Partners. He was also part of the Office of the Presidential Advance for both Bush presidencies. Casey, welcome to Newsroom. It seems two would-be assassins got very close to taking Trump out. Is this bill going to stop something like that from happening again?
Well, we hope it'll do some very positive change to what's happening. It's a trend now. Our enemies see how, quote, easily it is to attack a president, to line this thing out against presidents and potentially presidential candidates. So we hope this bill will absolutely put some force into the Secret Service, which has really been failing miserably, as well as more agents to make sure that our presidents and our presidential candidates and vice president candidates are covered.
Secret Service Chief Rose said recently and today that the service needs more than just a bigger budget and that there's reforms needed. He suggests they do need more staff, though. What do you think can be done in the next day or two that can immediately impact the protective services required for the candidates, the vice presidential candidates and their families?
Number one, to state of protocols. The Secret Service has decades worth of protocols that they are destined to use, but those protocols have not been used in the past couple of events where there was actually a breach. So state of protocols. Secondly, work very closely, more closely with local law enforcement, because there are concentric circles of security. The most immediate is Secret Service. The second is, depending on the venue, Secret Service and or local law enforcement. And then third and fourth tiers of those circles can be local law enforcement. So those can be stepped up. The other thing is start using more technologies, both on site, like thermal imaging software and thermal imaging items, as well as going after social media. The indications are now that this last attempt in Florida at the Trump golf course was that this gentleman was goaded by Iran to make a move. So we have to be, very vigilant moving forward. Understand this is not a one-off anymore, and it invites other nations to disrupt our country. Other nations see us as being very weak right now, and they feel like nothing, something like taking out a president or a presidential candidate could really change the world order. So it's something that we have to do to defend our democracy, defend our candidates, and ultimately defend the American people.
How are people within the intelligence community discussing this sort of off the record in internal circles?
That it's a massive breach, massive failure on the Secret Service's part. We've got a lot of good people in Secret Service. We've got a lot of other people in Secret Service. Some of them have not taken their job seriously, and it's putting people at risk. So that's at least my opinion of it, of having years of experience in this space. So it's time that we step up our game. Our enemies have stepped up their game. We have to see accordingly and protect our United States, our people, and our Constitution. And one way to really cause distress within the American people and the free world is to kill a presidential candidate or a sitting president. So we cannot allow that to happen.
You had mentioned techniques such as scanning social media to identify potential threats. Do you see anything of commonality between the two assailants who made their attempts against former President Trump?
I don't have that level of detail. Actually, nobody does unless you're inside of those committees that are doing the research. But I think that there needs to continue to be a nonpartisan congressional research panel undercovering all of these type of things for any kind of threats. Now, these could be lone wolf or one-off type situations. That's still a problem, but it still has to be addressed. So make no mistake, the world order and the world is in chaos. And with that, They are testing the United States in many, many different ways. This is another level of unrestricted war, which means that our enemies use no rules when attacking us. And the final version of unrestricted war is conventional warfare. So these are all meant to weaken the United States, whether they're lone wolf Americans that have a beef, and that's the way they think that they can solve problems, which is completely wrong, or whether it's nation state countries that want to see us go under.
And as we finish up, last question, you mentioned unrestricted warfare, and you also mentioned the need to use techniques in scanning social media. Can you give our audience, not specifics on the methods, but just to the scale of what goes into this cyber operations to provide the level of protected services in this heightened climate?
Well, it's a significant commitment to be able to scrub all communications, whether it's voice, text, written, and so on. But we have the technology to do that. It's done through software and algorithms and sifting through big data. But then you get into other folks that feel their privacy is being violated. Well, I would much rather have my privacy violated than my family killed or my president killed. So it's one of those things that we have to come to grips with as an open nation, but we also have to maintain national security. So it's a significant undertaking. I assure you, our enemies are also scrubbing social media with artificial intelligence and algorithms, and we need to be doing the same. We are doing the same, but maybe to a bigger degree.
Clearly, this is an unprecedented time in what the role of the Secret Service has to play in this very polarized situation of our national discourse. Casey Fleming, National Security and Counterintelligence Specialist, thanks for joining Newsroom today.
Thank you.
Former President Trump has made his case to Jewish Americans on why he thinks that they should be supporting him come November.
He also addressed rising incidents of anti-Semitism in the U.S. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley was in Washington, D.C.
On the heels of the one-year anniversary of the October 7th Hamas-Harris attack on Israel, former President Trump held a campaign event here in our nation's capital before speaking at another event all centered around fighting anti-Semitism here in the U.S.
I'm here today to tell the Jewish American community that this ugly tide of anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas bigotry and hate will be turned back and crushed starting at noon on January 20th, 2025.
Instances of anti-Semitism have been on the rise since October 7th, especially on college campuses. Trump talked about how he helped Israel secure Golan Heights. He also boasted about him terminating the Iran nuclear deal. Trump also recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and opened the U.S. embassy there. In 2019, Trump signed an executive order to combat anti-Semitism. It enforces civil rights laws to protect Jewish Americans from discrimination and harassment. Still, Trump says he's not the favorite among Jewish American voters, saying he's polling among them at 40%. If elected, Trump says he'll work to seal the border, issue mass deportations of illegal immigrants, encourage domestic oil drilling, undo electric vehicle mandates. He also said he'd eliminate tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. Now, this comes just days after an apparent second assassination attempt on the former president, the suspect of which made anti-Israel posts on social media. This weekend, Trump will be in Wilmington, North Carolina, holding a rally there. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Vice President Harris and Oprah Winfrey host a virtual event in Battleground, Michigan. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on yesterday's live stream broadcast, attended by actors such as Chris Rock, Julia Roberts, and Jennifer Aniston.
The event in a Detroit, Michigan suburb was billed as Unite for America and hosted by Oprah Winfrey.
So welcome to... Hello! Madam Vice President, hello. Welcome to Michigan.
It's so good to be back. And Governor, thank you.
The 90-minute broadcast showcased more than 140 pro-Harris grassroots groups appearing virtually. They made appeals to undecided voters in key battleground states and throughout the country. Actress Meryl Streep appeared via webcam. On the topic of illegal immigration, Harris blamed former President Trump for the southern border crisis. She accused Trump of persuading congressional Republicans to vote against the failed bipartisan border bill. The vice president vowed to get a bill passed if she wins the presidency.
And when I am elected president of the United States, I will make sure that bill gets to my desk and I will sign it into law.
Harris also waded into the Second Amendment debate. She said people have been pushing a false choice, suggesting you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away.
I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I'm in favor of assault weapons bans, universal background checks, red flag laws. And these are just common sense.
The vice president confided in Oprah that she herself has a firearm.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
A victim of the recent deadly Georgia school shooting, 15-year-old Natalie Griffith attended the event with her parents.
It was a terrible thing. I was
shot
right here on my shoulder and then around here.
14-year-old Colt Gray has been charged as an adult with 4 counts of murder in that shooting. Prosecutors have also charged his father with involuntary manslaughter. They allege he provided the weapon to his son. Harris also discussed abortion bans, saying they can negatively impact health care.
Among everything that is wrong with these bans and what has happened in terms of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it's a healthcare crisis. It's a healthcare crisis that affects the patient and the profession.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer!
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was in attendance. She emphasized the state's critical battleground status in the race for the Electoral College. More than 300,000 people watched the Harris campaign live stream on YouTube. The event was also streamed on other major social media platforms. Up next for Harris is a rally to be held early this evening in Madison, Wisconsin. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, Venezuelan gangs allegedly take control of Aurora apartments, threatening residents and evading police. Former ICE Director John Fabricatore shares shocking details of extortion and violence after this break.
Tired of scrolling Netflix? Trying to find something that's worth watching? Want to skip the censorship in mainstream media? Well, now you can with Epic TV. New exclusive content every day with over 100 never-before-seen movies, films, and documentaries. Available and streaming now at your fingertips. For a limited time now, you can get 60% off Epic TV by subscribing or upgrading to a yearly plan. Plus, get an additional $10 credit to rent featured movies on Epic Cinema today. Skip mainstream narratives and find quality family entertainment from the comfort of your very own home. Say no to big tech and subscribe to Epic TV.
The Kindness is Cool Video Awards are back for their second year. Record and nominate acts of kindness, both big and small, from individuals, families, and communities. Submit your videos on ganjingworld.com with the hashtag KindnessIsCool. Win a $10,000 grand prize and be featured on a New York Times Square billboard. Visit ganjingworld.com and start sharing today. Kindness is cool.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. But then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Thanks for staying with us. The Energy Department said today that it will award $3 billion to 25 battery projects. The goal is to boost domestic battery production and reduce reliance on China. The department says the projects will support 12,000 jobs and generate $16 billion in investments. Funds will go to battery materials, manufacturing, and recycling. The company Albemarle will receive over $65 million for lithium-ion battery materials in North Carolina. Honeywell will get over $125 for a battery facility in Louisiana. It will produce a key electrolyte salt needed for lithium batteries. The government aims to secure critical minerals needed for electric vehicles and clean energy. Most of these minerals are currently sourced from China.
An update on the controversy surrounding apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado, right outside of Denver. City officials and residents are pushing back against claims of a Venezuelan gang takeover. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with a former Immigration and Customs Enforcement director who recently helped move out an elderly woman who said she was under siege.
Viral video showing armed men at an apartment complex sparked fears, even gaining attention from Elon Musk and former President Trump. The videos intensified fears the Tren de Aragua gang was in control of the 6-building complex. Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman and Interim Police Chief Heather Morris insist there's no gang control at the building. But police have linked 10 people in Aurora to the Tren de Aragua and arrested 6 of them, including suspects in a July attempted homicide. In late June, a law firm reported to the city of Aurora that Venezuelan gang members had taken over the Aurora multifamily properties. The report said they had threatened the property manager's life, were armed with assault rifles, and demanded a joint operation agreement from the owners. Republican congressional candidate John Fabricatore is a former ICE director for all of Colorado and Wyoming. He says residents have been calling for help, but can't get the Aurora Police Department to come out at nighttime.
There's gunshots every night. Cars have multiple bullet holes in them. There's drug deals going on in broad daylight. The police come through during the day. As soon as the police start to roll into that area, the drug dealers disappear, the gang members disappear. They've got lookouts on rooftops. So anytime a police officer gets within a few blocks of there, they're already hiding by the time the police get on scene.
The congressional candidate discusses a woman they recently helped move.
They were coming up to her door, trying to extort money from her. They wanted the keys to her apartment. What they do is they gather up keys to everyone's apartment. They want to be in control. They want people paying rent to them and not the landlords.
Gunshots can be heard here at a recently shut down complex where Fabricatore says gang members were extorting people.
See, this is what the city's doing. The city is coming down and just shutting the whole building down, and they're putting people out on the street. Instead of dealing with the crime problem, the city is just coming down, shutting down the apartment complex and telling people they need to move out.
Fabricatore sees the current policy for illegal immigration as a major factor behind situations like Aurora.
Many of these young men that are coming up here have been in gangs in Venezuela. Their way of life in Venezuela their job was to steal and rob, and this is what they know. And then they come here to the United States, and the pot of gold is even bigger.
NTD contacted the Aurora Police Department for comment. On allegedly not responding to nighttime calls, they say police must prioritize responding to life-threatening emergencies first. They say police are expected at a minimum to make phone contact with a reporting party. Police say they have received claims and allegations about stolen rent money dating back about a year, but have not yet established probable cause or made any arrests on those reports. On the takeover allegations, they are aware of documented gang members residing at all 3 CBZ management properties in Aurora, but have not seen evidence of a takeover. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The head of the world's strongest defense alliance is now stepping down after 10 years of service. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg gave his farewell remarks last night at the German Marshall Fund event.
Freedom is more important than free trade. Russia used gas as a weapon to try to coerce us and to prevent us from supporting Ukraine. We must not make the same mistake with China. Depending on Chinese rare earth minerals, exporting advanced technologies, and allowing foreign control over critical infrastructure weakens our resilience and create risks.
China is the global leading producer and exporter of rare earth minerals. Since last year, Beijing has added several strategic minerals to its restricted export list. Those minerals are essential for making weapons, semiconductors, and batteries. Many see the move as part of Beijing's retaliation against a U.S. ban on exporting microchips and related tech know-how. The Chinese regime's core interest is Taiwan, an island that the Communist Party claims as its own territory, despite never actually having ruled it. U.S. government reports have shown that the regime is trying to disrupt U.S. and allied support for Taiwan. That's by deploying botnets to threaten key infrastructure and government systems, potentially disrupting any response to a possible invasion of Taiwan. Back to the ongoing NATO chief now. He said the alliance will continue to engage with China, but must not compromise long-term security needs just for short-term profits.
NTD's 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition kicked off its preliminary round in New York yesterday as singers made their way from 8 countries to perform. That and more just after this short break.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them.
I grew up in poverty, and I actually became physically homeless right after I turned 16.
I didn't have anywhere to sleep, and I didn't really have friends or family that could support me.
To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference. Covenant House.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life.
Without the Covenant House, I honestly could not tell you where I would be today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I would not be here today if it weren't for the kindness of strangers, people who donated to Covenant House so that they could support me when I couldn't support myself.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible.
Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month.
Welcome back. There is now a push to revive traditional vocal arts. NTD's 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition kicked off its preliminary round in New York on Thursday. Contestants from 8 countries tested their skills in bel canto, which is a style of opera singing dating back to the Renaissance. 14 of them have made it to the semifinals. NTD's Juliet Song was there and has more on this story.
Melodies that use the human body as an instrument. That's the art of bel canto, believed to produce the most pure tone of voice. But that purity comes with volume and a challenge, one that contestant Mika Hill gave up during her teenage years.
When I started singing professionally when I was 17, I couldn't sing bel canto because it's too loud for the microphones.
Even without a microphone, a bel canto singer's voice can reach every corner of even the largest theaters, sometimes with as many as 3,000 seats. After singing for 40 years, Hill picked up the art of bel canto again.
I think it is kind of like a calling back to what's true and what's good and tradition. I want to be a part of the movement forward to what can inspire people in the long run, their good side, their true side, their heart. And I think that's what this does.
Another contestant said she simply enjoys sharing her voice with others. She performed an aria from opera comique Carmen during the competition. When I was standing on the stage, I didn't feel I was myself, that I was Zhang Chunqing. At this moment, I was Carmen, so I wanted to share her music with everyone. While another sang about his own life experience, Ben Li performed a song called Wandering Around.
Because that was my life for over a decade in mainland China. That's how I came through, so I like that song. I want to bring out the feelings in that song with my singing, because it was about the life experiences of many people who suffered under Beijing's persecution.
Other contestants called the competition a good learning experience.
The competition gave me a deeper understanding about art and culture and helped me improve myself a lot in vocal.
I just like make friends and also listen to many different styles of the other competitors, and also learn from the way they trained, they practice.
The competition finals will take place this Saturday at Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Tickets are available at vocal.ntdtv.com. Reporting from New York, Juliet Song, NTD News.
Wow, their vocal artistry is truly inspiring. Coming up, the Federal Trade Commission report says major social media and streaming services collect and use personal data. They use this personal information for profit. That and more just after this break.
We design Native Path products to restore essential nutrients missing from the modern diet. This is what being on the path is all about. We're more than a health and wellness brand, we're a community.
Come to the Mathis Design Studio, the premier destination for designer furniture. See the latest trends from top brands with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Whether you're redecorating a single room or furnishing an entire home, we have the styles you'll love. Plus, enjoy fast, complimentary delivery. Visit us now for exclusive discounts and let us help make your dream home a reality for less than you ever imagined at the Mathis Design Studio.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Carrie Dunst.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump will both be in key battleground states this weekend. That's after Oprah Winfrey interviewed Harris last night, and Trump was seeking to win over Jewish voters in Washington, D.C.
The Georgia Board of Elections approves new voting rules requiring that paper ballots be hand-counted on Election Day. The new policy comes just 45 days before the election.
The U.S. Supreme Court denies the Green Party's request to include presidential candidate Jill Stein on the ballot in Nevada.
The Federal Reserve announced a major interest rate cut this week. How will this impact home buyers? We have an expert that will break it all down for us.
A Federal Trade Commission report says major social media and streaming services collect and then use personal data. They use this personal information for profit.
A hiker's terrifying slip and slide down a rainy cliffside caught on camera.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
We're counting down the days to Election Day. Former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are holding events in battleground states.
That's right. Trump's attempting to win favor with Jewish voters. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has an update on Trump's campaign.
Former President Donald Trump took to the stage to denounce anti-Semitism at 2 events last night. He was in Washington, D.C., working to persuade Jewish voters to cast their ballots for him. Trump talked about how he worked to terminate the Iran nuclear deal, secure Golan Heights as part of Israel, and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and open the U.S. embassy there. Still, Trump says he's not the favorite among Jewish American voters, saying he's polling among them around 40%. And this comes close to the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack on Israel, which ignited the Israel-Hamas war. Instances of anti-Semitism have been on the rise since then, especially on college campuses. Colleges across the U.S. experienced a wave of anti-Israel protests in response to the war. In one of many cases earlier this year, Jewish protesters blocked Jewish students from attending classes at UCLA. The university faces a lawsuit alleging that they refused to assist them. Now, Trump also said that in the next few weeks, he'll visit Springfield, Ohio, and Aurora, Colorado. It comes amid reports of a surge in crime committed by illegal immigrants in those cities. Springfield has been at the center of controversy over claims that illegal immigrants there were eating pets. Now, city and state officials have dismissed those claims as false. And an update on Trump's D.C. criminal case. Trump's attorneys last night asked the judges for information about special counsel Jack Smith's team's views on presidential immunity. Now, this comes after the Supreme Court ruled this summer that presidents do have immunity from prosecution for official acts. And on Saturday, Trump will hold a rally in Wilmington, North Carolina. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, will hold a campaign event in Leesport, Pennsylvania, around the same time. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is set to rally in Marietta, Georgia, and Madison, Wisconsin later today. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
A pro-Palestine voting group has announced that it will not endorse Vice President Harris. The Uncommitted national movement was founded in the Great Lakes area. It criticizes Harris for not shifting her Israel weapons policy. The group also says Harris failed to meet their demands. One of those speaking was with Palestinian American families who have lost loved ones in the Gaza war. Michigan is a key battleground state. It has a large Arab American population. More than 100,000 voters cast uncommitted votes in Michigan's primary. The goal was to protest U.S. policy on Israel. Harris has since expressed support for Israel's ability to defend itself while being sympathetic to those suffering in Gaza.
The U.S. Supreme Court has declined a request from the Green Party to get party presidential candidate Jill Stein onto the ballot in the battleground state of Nevada. The Green Party argued its candidates were ripped from the ballot in Nevada because campaign workers used an incorrect form to collect signatures needed to ensure Stein's place onto the ballot. In filings this week, Nevada election officials said it was too late to interrupt ballot printing for the November election because ballots for the military and overseas voters must be mailed by Saturday under federal law. A lower court in the state sided with the Green Party, but the Nevada Supreme Court ruled this month Stein should be kept off the ballot. The state Supreme Court said the Nevada Secretary of State's office provided the Green Party with the incorrect form used in the signature collection process, which was a mistake.
In-person voting for this year's presidential election is now underway in 3 states.
Voters lined up to cast their ballots in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia. In Minnesota, voters can cast early in-person ballots at county and city election sites until the day before the election. The state will begin counting ballots 19 days before November 5th. In Virginia, the director of Fairfax County elections said roughly a third of the local voters cast their ballots on Election Day back in 2020. The rest of the voters voted by mail or early and in person.
In South Dakota, the top election official in Minnehaha County is planning for 80% turnout. An early voting area was set up in the county administration building in Sioux Falls. According to the Pew Research Center, just over a quarter of voters cast ballots in person before Election Day back in 2020. About a dozen more states will begin early voting by mid-October.
Georgia's election board voted today on a new hand count rule. The policy requires millions of ballots to be manually tallied. The state election board convened a meeting this morning.
History is watching. The world is watching. What we do here today matters, and what we do here today is important. The idea that you're not going to listen to the individuals that are charged with conducting elections is absurd to me. For the board members that want to implement these rules, because they're most likely going to implement them because they have the numbers, I challenge you to go into any county in the state of Georgia and to do the rules that you're passing on today. Work as a poll worker all day and then count the ballots.
Most of the recently enacted and proposed rules have been brought by presumably well-meaning citizens who are in many cases not electoral professionals or experts. Most of their concerns are based on highly unlikely what-if scenarios rather than anything evidence-based. There is a fine line between citizen oversight and citizen micromanagement. And some of these rules, particularly those that specify how many ballots should be in a pile for counting, for example, clearly cross that line.
The rule requires 3 poll workers in each of Georgia's 6,500 precincts to open sealed ballot boxes. They will then begin hand counting, starting as soon as election night. Another rule requires a hand count for any ballot box with over 1,500 ballots during early voting. Georgia is the only state with this rule. Voting right advocates warn it could cause delays, errors, and an increase in election challenges. Supporters, however, say it will ensure ballot scanning machines are accurate.
Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe just held a press conference to provide updates on the security lapses that were related to the shooting of former President Trump at a campaign rally back in July.
Let's take a quick look.
As I've said, this was a failure on the part of the United States Secret Service. It's important that we hold ourselves accountable for the failures of July 13th, and that we use the lessons learned to make sure that we do not have another failure like this again. The findings of the Mission Assurance Review have prompted the Secret Service to move into the accountability phase of this process. The Secret Service did not give clear guidance or direction to our local law enforcement partners. There were communication deficiencies between law enforcement personnel at the site. With respect to accountability, the Mission Assurance Review has identified deficiencies in the advanced planning and its implementation by Secret Service personnel. These employees will be held accountable, and this agency has among the most robust table of penalties in the entirety of the federal government. And these penalties will be administered according to our disciplinary process. What has become clear to me is we need a shift in paradigm and how we conduct our protective operations. As was demonstrated on Sunday in West Palm Beach, the threat level is evolving and requires this paradigm shift.
This morning, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would see the U.S. Secret Service protection of presidential candidates increased. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more on the story.
Well, this bill that was voted on this morning and passed unanimously would see the Secret Service protection detail of presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates be at the same level as the president and the vice president. So it's interesting to see that 405 congressmen voted for this bill. No one voted against it. That also means that 30 congressmen did not vote today, whether they were not present or for other reasons. It will also be interesting to see if the Senate picks up this bill and if it's passed in the Senate, whether the president will sign it. But it's, of course, part of what's going on, ongoing investigations, the attempted assassinations of former President Donald Trump, and the concern shared by lawmakers to increase the security detail of the presidential candidate of both parties.
And we just heard there the director of the Secret Service giving an update on the investigations into the Trump assassination attempts. Do you have more on that? What's the status in Congress on these ongoing investigations?
Well, the House of Representatives has a bipartisan task force that was voted and passed also unanimously. Today, I spoke with the Democratic ranking member of that task force, Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado. Let's listen to what he had to say about the next steps in this investigation.
The task force has asked for additional resources because we want this to be timely. We're going to need more lawyers, more staff to conduct the investigation and do those interviews. And that does require a House vote to do it.
So most likely next week we will see a vote on the House floor to expand the scope of the bipartisan task force in the House of Representatives investigating the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump to include the second alleged attempt that we saw last week in Florida. And we also heard from Congressman Jason Crow that they will ask for more resources, staff, and lawyers. There's another investigation in the House, an independent investigation led by Congressman Corey Mills of Florida with a group of fellow Republican congressmen. Let's listen what he had to say about the investigations thus far. you have confidence in the task force investigation? You're conducting your own independent review of the assassination attempts. Do you have confidence that they're going to do a good job?
Well, it's difficult for any independent investigation task force or even our Florida governor from doing investigations when you got the FBI and others who are unwilling to cooperate. There's information that still needs to be led, and that's why we're relying so heavily on our whistleblowers.
It will also be interesting to see if next week, during the last days of Congress being in session, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate will include in their proposal of a continuing resolution to fund government through an extended period of time more funding for the Department of Homeland Security to then, of course, help the Secret Service meet the gap in personnel and technical assets that Acting Director Ronald Rowe mentioned today during the press conference. Back to you.
All right, Luis, thank you reporting there from Washington, D.C. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve decided to cut its key interest rate by 0.5 percentage point. Here to discuss what this means for homeowners is Gregory Freeman. He's the owner and senior mortgage officer of Scissortail Financial Home Loans. Good to see you. I want to focus today on two types of people: the first-time home buyers and the people who already own a home and are looking to refinance. So Gregory, first, mortgage rates, lowest they've been since early February 2023. Are you seeing more people coming to you to refinance their mortgages?
We are. Almost a knee-jerk reaction of new applications flooding in. We believe that is in response of what the consumer is seeing in the media with the federal funds rate decreasing by 50 basis points.
And how much are these people saving by refinancing?
It's case by case. The majority of people that are, reaching out right now bought a house in 2023, late 2022, when interest rates, really started to increase. So these people have interest rates in the 6s or 7s. So people like that, are going to be able to save, 1 or 2% in interest rate. Exactly how much somebody would save is going to be contingent upon, a loan amount and term. But in some cases, it can be several $100s a month.
And for these people who come to you, discuss, and then end up deciding not to refinance, why that decision?
Well, I know for us specifically, we like to calculate the big numbers for our clients. And so what that means is just because somebody thinks the interest rate might be lower, or it might be, we want to look at that transaction from every angle. And for us, we like to calculate the total sum of payments over the life of the loan. So, even though somebody might be saving, $100 a month, for example, the fact that if they're starting over with a new 30-year term, and they're only 1 or 2 years in to their existing loan, then in that case, the total sum of money over the life of the loan that they would, pay in interest could be larger, even though the payment has gone down slightly. So sometimes we're advising people that it's not a good idea to refinance, and giving them, the exact figures as to why.
Then, based on your calculations, how much further would these rates have to drop to make it worth it to refinance?
So, that's kind of a complicated question to answer, and you can't answer that for everybody in a blanket answer. So really, the smaller the loan amount you have, the larger an improvement in interest rate you're going to need in order to, really save money and for it to make sense. But if somebody has an outstanding loan amount of, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, then that individual does not need to see as large of decrease in interest rate to really save a tremendous amount of money over the life of the loan. So it kind of depends is the answer. But, I would say for somebody that has an average loan amount of, $250,000 to maybe $400,000, that person is probably going to be pretty excited about how much money they could save every month with refinancing if the interest rate had improved about 1%.
And Gregory, let's talk now about these first-time home buyers. Are we seeing more of them? Is this rate cut making it more affordable for more people to buy their first homes?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions that we see out there, especially in the media. There are reports that I have seen that are kind of incorrect. So a lot of people believe that just because the Fed cuts the federal funds rate by 50 basis points, for example, that they are cutting mortgage interest rates. And that's not what they're doing. They are cutting the federal funds rate, which is an interest rate that banks charge one another for overnight loans. And so even though that might trickle down to a mortgage interest rate, it does not mean because the Fed has cut the interest rate by 50 basis points that now, mortgage interest rates have improved by 0.5%. So in other words, it's not like they went from 6% to 5.5% overnight, to match the federal funds rate exactly. So the bond market has known that this federal funds rate adjustment was coming. They knew that it was around the corner. And so, the market in terms of mortgage rates had already adjusted accordingly. And so we've seen lower interest rates for a few weeks now, leading up to the federal funds rate cut that happened this week. So we're already seeing people's payments become quite a bit less for the same amount of money that they were looking to borrow to buy a house, or they can borrow more money for the same payment compared to what rates were just a few months ago. So first-time home buyers are excited. I believe it was kind of a shot of adrenaline for first-time home buyers. I think it's an opportunity right now specifically for first-time home buyers because, there is a decent amount of inventory for them to buy. So it's not like we were in a position, 2 or 3 years ago to where there was just a complete scarcity of properties for first-time home buyers to even purchase. So at least there's, houses that are in good condition at a good price point that they can purchase with these lower interest rates. Because one thing will happen if interest rates for mortgages continues to decrease, these houses will be bought up, which is going to do nothing but drive the prices of houses up accordingly.
Right, so I want to zone in on that a little more. Do you think there might be a housing shortage at some point because of this type of buying, because of this excitement?
I do believe that there could be. I mean, that's what we experienced right after COVID when the Fed, really cut interest rates to stimulate the market. Basically they're incentivizing people to spend money by cutting the federal funds rate. When they increase the federal funds rate, they're de-incentivizing people from spending money. And so if rates go down quite a bit, it will basically all the houses that are available get bought up, and it'll be hard first-time home buyers to find houses just because of the laws of supply and demand. If things become cheaper, people are going to want to buy it up, and there's only so many houses out there.
And Gregory, I know you can't give a blanket statement about this, but I'm just curious, how much are you seeing these first-time home buyers save with these cuts?
I'm seeing them increasing their buying power more than having a little bit cheaper payment. I think first-time home buyers, at least the bulk of the ones that we work with, are pretty comfortable with their payments where they're at now with where the interest rates have been. So now they're able to buy a home that's maybe, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more expensive with the same payment. So it's allowing them to expand their search criteria to find a house that maybe suits their needs a little bit better. I'm seeing them more excited about that than they are, I was looking at the same house and now my payment's going to be $100 and $150 a month cheaper. So I'm seeing them buy a little bit more house for the dollar, and then in finding a house that maybe is a little bit nicer than what they thought they could buy, more so than saving a little bit of money every single month.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up there. Now, Gregory, moving from primary homes for residents, I want to ask about investment properties. Do you think it's a good time right now for people to be looking into that?
I do. I mean, so if you watch the data out there where, it shows that rents are starting to stabilize or decrease slightly. And so depending upon the market, if somebody wants to buy an investment property, or even short-term rentals. I mean, we have a lot of clients that are buying investment properties because they want to do, VRBO or something similar with the short-term rental market. If the houses that are out there are available to buy, they're scooping them up as quickly as they can because investors know that they can rent those properties out cheaper than what that same client might be able to rent an apartment for. But investors are kind of competing with first-time home buyers because it's a similar price point. If that investor is looking for a buy and hold type of a purchase, you have the other kind of investor that wants to buy a property, fix it up, and then sell it. And we have a lot of investors that are still incredibly driven to find those properties and also sell those to first-time home buyers. So they kind of compete against one another sometimes.
All right, Gregory, quickly before we go, what would your advice be to all home buyers right now? What would your golden rule be?
I think my golden rule is be prepared. When there are opportunities to buy houses in real estate, you lose out by waiting until the last minute to kind of get your ducks in a row, if you will. So if you think you might want to buy a house, it's important to get connected with a professional. It's important to work with a local lender to get you fully pre-approved. So when the right house comes on the market, you can take advantage of that opportunity and make the offer, get the offer accepted. Because when these great houses come on the market, you do not have enough time to then, find a realtor and then get pre-approved. I mean, that might take several days. And if that house was priced right and in a good location and also, in good condition, it's already going to be in contract and somebody else is going to get it. So you want to be prepared. You want to be proactive, and that way, when the right house comes on the market, you can put your offer in and hopefully win it.
Well, some great advice there, Gregory. Wishing all the best to all those home buyers out there. Gregory Freeman, owner and Senior Mortgage Officer of Scissortail Financial Home Loans. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Vice President Kamala Harris is now speaking in Georgia, focusing on abortion rights, a state where the 6-week abortion ban has led to women's deaths.
Let's take a look.
If she chooses, she will talk with her pastor, her priest, her rabbi, her imam. But it should not be the government or Donald Trump telling her what to do with her body. And think about it. The stories that Dr. Reddick shares with us, the stories we heard last night, the stories we've been hearing for 2 years. 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban. This includes Georgia and every state in the South except Virginia. Think about that when you also combine that with what we know has been long-standing neglect around an issue like maternal mortality. Think about that when you compound that with what has been long-standing neglect of women in communities with a lack of the adequate resources they need for health care, prenatal, during their pregnancy, postpartum. Think about that. And these hypocrites want to start talking about this is in the best interest of women and children. Well, where you been? Where you been when it comes to taking care of the women and children of America? Where you been? How dare they? understand the impact of these bans and the horrific reality that women and families, their husbands, their partners, their parents, their children are facing as a consequence every single day. Since Roe was overturned, I have met women who were refused care during a miscarriage, wanted to have a child, suffering a miscarriage. I met a woman, I've actually met several, who were turned away from the emergency room. One at early stages after the Dobbs decision came down told me with tears, she was with her husband, about how only when she developed sepsis did she receive emergency care. Only when she developed sepsis did she receive emergency care. And now we know that at least 2 women, and those are only the stories we know, here in the state of Georgia, died because of a Trump abortion ban. One, and we heard about her story last night, a vibrant 28-year-old young woman. She was ambitious. You know, I talked with her mother and her sisters about her, and they described such an extraordinary life of a person. She was excited. She was working hard. She was a medical assistant. She was going to nursing school, raising her 6-year-old son. She was really proud that she had finally worked so hard that she gained the independence. Her family was telling me that she was able to get an apartment in a gated community with a pool for her son to play in. She was so proud, and she was headed to nursing school. And her name, and we will speak her name, Amber Nicole Thurman. Amber Nicole Thurman. Amber Nicole Thurman. That's right. And she had her future all planned out. And it was her plan. You know, let's understand, just take pause on that for a moment. She had her plan, what she wanted to do for her son, for herself, for their future. And so when she discovered that she was pregnant, she decided she wanted to have an abortion. But because of the Trump abortion ban here in Georgia, she was forced to travel out of state to receive the health care that she needed. But when she returned to Georgia, she needed additional care. So she went to a hospital. But you see, under the Trump abortion ban, her doctors could have faced up to a decade in prison for providing Amber the care she needed. Understand what a law like this means. Doctors have to wait until the patient is at death's door before they take action. You know, on the other side of my, you know, the other folks, Trump and his running mate, and they'll talk about, oh yeah, but I do believe in the exception to save the mother's life. Okay, all right, let's break that down, shall we? Let's break that down. Let's break that down. So we're saying that we're going to create public policy that says that a doctor, a healthcare provider, will only kick in to give the care that somebody needs if they're about to die? Think about what we are saying right now. You're saying that good policy, logical policy, moral policy, humane policy is about saying that a healthcare provider will only start providing that care when you're about to die? And so Amber waited 20 hours. 20 hours. Excruciating hours. Until finally she was in enough physical distress that her doctors thought they would be okay to treat her. But it was too late. She died of sepsis. And her last words to her mother, which her mother, as you know, tears up and cries every time she speaks it. Last words to her mother, promise me you'll take care of my son. So I met last night and I spent time with Amber's mother and her sisters, and they spoke about Amber, a daughter, a sister, a mother, with the deep love that you can imagine, and how terribly they miss her. And their pain is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Amber's mother, Shanette, told me that the word preventable is over and over again in her head when she learned about how her child died. The word preventable. She can't stop thinking about the word that they spoke to her. It was preventable. Because you see, medical experts have now determined that Amber's death was preventable. And through the pain and the grief of her mother, who courageously told her story, I promised her, as she has asked, that we will make sure Amber is not just remembered as a statistic. That she will not just be remembered as a statistic. So that people will know she was a mother and a daughter and a sister, and that she was loved, and that she should be alive today. And that she should be alive today. And many of us remember, there's so many leaders here, from 2 years ago when the Dobbs decision came down. We knew this could happen. There is a word preventable, and there is another word, predictable. And the reality is, for every story we hear of the suffering under Trump abortion bans, there are so many other stories we're not hearing, but where suffering is happening every day in our country. An untold number of people suffering. Women who are also being made to feel as though they did something wrong. The judgment factor here is outrageous. Being made as though to feel as though they are criminals, as though they are alone. So to those women, to those families, I say on behalf of what I believe we all say, we see you and you are not alone, and we are all here standing with you. Standing with you. You are not alone. You are not alone. Georgia, we will not be silent. And we will not be silent. But this is a healthcare crisis. This is a healthcare crisis, and Donald Trump is the architect of this crisis. He brags about overturning Roe v. Wade. In his own words, quote, "I did it and I'm proud to have done it," he says. He is proud that women are dying. Proud that doctors and nurses could be thrown in prison for administering care. Proud that young women today have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. How dare he? How dare he? And in our debate last week, that was fun. And I know everyone here paid attention to the words, though. The words, right? I'm trying to get another debate. We'll see. But in our debate last week, remember when he said everyone wanted Roe v. Wade to be overturned? Well, exactly. I don't know who everyone is either. Because women have been arrested and charged for miscarriages. They didn't want that. I was speaking with a physician who is here, who has in her professional experience been administering care to girls. And what we know is that 12 and 13-year-old survivors of assault are being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They didn't want this. And couples just trying to grow their family being cut off in the middle of IVF treatments, they didn't want this. No. And on that last point, you probably saw this week for the second time, Republicans in the United States Senate blocked a bill that would protect access to IVF treatment. Now consider, among the multitude of ironies, the fact that on the one hand, these extremists want to tell women they don't have the freedom to end an unwanted pregnancy. And on the other hand, these extremists are telling women and their partners they don't have the freedom to start a family. Okay. And they want to restrict access to contraception as well. And now Donald Trump says that he would personally cast his vote in Florida, which is where he now lives, to support their extreme abortion ban, just like the one that is here in Georgia. And well, that's a whole different policy discussion that we'll have for another day. But let's understand, if he is elected again as president, Donald Trump will go further. But we know what we're up against, and we must speak of the stakes. We must remind, everybody here knows, but we got to remind our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, the stakes are so high. Because if he is elected again, I am certain he will sign a national abortion ban, which would outlaw abortion in every single state. And he would create a national anti-abortion coordinator. Look at Project 2025. And force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions. It's right there. I can't believe they put that Project 2025 in writing. They literally put it in writing. They bound it. They handed it out. I mean, they are simply out of their minds. And it's clear that they just don't trust women. Well, we trust women. We trust women. And like Dr. Reddick said, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will so proudly sign it into law. I will so proudly sign it into law. Proudly sign it into law. So, 46 days to go. And let us remember that momentum on this and so many issues, momentum is on our side. Let's remember, since Roe was overturned, every time reproductive freedom has been on the ballot, from Kansas to California to Kentucky, in Michigan, Montana, Vermont, and Ohio. The people of America have voted for freedom. The people of America have voted for freedom. And not just by a little, but by overwhelming margins, from so-called red states to so-called blue states, providing and making clear also, this is not a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue. And it is proving that the voice of the people has been heard and will be heard again. And will be heard again. So, 46 days to go in probably the most consequential election of our lifetimes. And with that, then, today I ask Georgia, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we trust women? Do we believe in reproductive freedom? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless you.
All right, that there, as you can see, is Vice President Kamala Harris. Just finished a speech in a rally in Georgia talking about abortion rights, obviously a very important topic this election season. Georgia as well, a very important swing state for these candidates. Mentioned there a mother from Georgia, Amber Thurman, who passed away after developing sepsis after an abortion procedure out of state had gone wrong. She came back to the state of Georgia and passed away then.
Yeah, certainly the narrative really touching the hearts of the crowd in Atlanta, Georgia, the women giving her a standing ovation. And while on many issues like the economy, some of the sound bites are starting to sound a little bit more to the center, this is one of the areas where the two candidates clearly have their differences. Vice President Kamala Harris wanting abortion enshrined at the federal level, while former President Trump wanting it down with the state levels.
Absolutely right, Carrie. A lot of discussion and a lot of debate there. All right, coming up, a Federal Trade Commission report says that major social media and streaming services collect and use personal data. They use this personal information for profit.
A hiker's terrifying slip and slide down a rainy cliffside caught on camera. That and more after this break.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Tangazo hili linahusu njaa. Tarajia kuona watoto wakiwa na njaa katika maeneo haya. Mambo yalikuwa bora kwa miaka mingi. Tuliweza kupigana na njaa na watoto wachache walikufa. Lakini sasa mambo yamebadilika na kwa mabaya zaidi. Hii ni kwa sababu wakati huu ukame umeangamiza zaidi.
Через війни та конфлікти ми мусимо залишати наші домівки і всі наші речі. Ми навіть не маємо їжі. Тому нам потрібна ваша допомога.
Millions of children are fighting to survive due to inequality, conflict, poverty, and the climate crisis. Save the Children is working alongside communities to provide a better life for children. And there's a way you can help. please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We urgently need 1,000 new monthly donors in the next 30 days to help the children we support around the world. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection, plus so much more that a child needs, by calling right now and giving just $10 a month.
Ви можете допомогти голодуючим родинам вижити.
और बच्चों को भूख से मरने से रोक सकते हैं.
All we need are 1,000 monthly donors in the next 30 days. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
Toto kote duniani потребують вашої допомоги.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
The Kindness is Cool Video Awards are back for their second year. Record and nominate acts of kindness, both big and small, from individuals, families, and communities. Submit your videos on ganjingworld.com with the hashtag KindnessIsCool. Win a $10,000 grand prize and be featured on a New York Times Square billboard. Visit ganjingworld.com and start sharing today. Kindness is cool.
Welcome back. Kamala Harris will be holding a rally in the swing state of Wisconsin. NTD's national correspondent Jason Blair will be bringing us updates on the ground where the rally will be held in a few hours. Jason, what's the significance for Harris going to Wisconsin?
Yeah, hey guys, Wisconsin is considered a very important state for Harris to win. It has 10 electoral votes. It's definitely a swing state. Now, back in 2016, Trump narrowly won the state. However, in 2020, Biden flipped it back to blue. So this is, considered a tight race for Harris. The poll averages are currently showing them pretty much neck and neck. Currently, Harris is leading by just about 1%. Now, one of the reasons why she might be coming here to Madison is to appeal to young voters. Madison is the home of the University of Wisconsin, which is one of the largest public universities in the nation. So she'll have the chance to appeal to a lot of young voters in this area, as well as probably energize her core crowd. Madison is considered a bit more liberal and progressive city. I actually talked to someone earlier today who's going to be attending the rally, and she was talking about how she thinks Madison is a really great area for her to visit because there are a lot of surrounding areas that are close. Here's what she had to say.
And I think that's super important that she's thinking about all of that. She's not just in the center of Milwaukee where it's hard for people to get in. She's reaching to people in Janesville, Mount Horeb, really small places that need this as well.
Jason, it seems like they're really rolling out a red carpet for her there in Wisconsin. I can hear it sounds like Stevie Wonder playing, high energy. What should we probably expect to see at tonight's rally?
Yeah, this is a bigger rally. It is a Coliseum. It holds about 10,000 people. I was told that they have just about all the seats full. There are some seats left for staffers, but they said they are pretty much maxed out. And they even, I'm told they might have tents outside with TVs for people kind of overflow that might not get a chance to come inside. So this is probably going to be something similar to what we saw in Savannah, Georgia, a really big crowd. There was a DJ playing, energizing everybody up. There's a DJ playing here now, and people are starting to trickle in. So there's probably going to be a lot of energy, a lot of, pumping up the crowd, getting them motivated. And Harris will probably be talking about a lot of the key issues that we have seen her bring up at previous rallies, like abortion, her plan for the economy, and we might even see some possible disruptions. I know in Savannah there were some pro-Palestine protesters that got into the rally and were successful at disrupting it a little bit, so we might see some surprises like that here tonight. We'll just have to wait and see. Back to you.
Thanks, Jason. Looking forward to your report later tonight. Thank you.
President Biden convened his first cabinet meeting in nearly a year today, and this is coming exactly 4 months before the next president is set to be inaugurated. The president was flanked by the Secretaries of State and Defense at the White House meeting. First Lady Jill Biden joined at the top of the meeting to provide an update on the progress of the White House Women's Health Research Initiative. It's the first time she's taken part in such a session. The president was expected to instruct his cabinet members to, quote, sprint to the finish. It comes as he looks to ensure the implementation of as much of his agenda as possible before a potential second Trump presidency.
A new Federal Trade Commission staff report says major social media and video streaming services conducted vast surveillance of users to monetize their personal information. The report analyzed how 9 companies, including Meta, which is of course the parent of Facebook, YouTube owned by Google, and TikTok, collect and use data. The FTC said that while the companies make a lot of money by harvesting the data, it can put people's privacy in danger and expose them to things like identity theft and stalking. The report also said several of the firms failed to adequately protect children and teens. The FTC recommends that companies limit data collection and sharing, restrict targeted advertising, and improve protection for teens. It also said Congress should pass federal privacy legislation to address the issues. And today, the Federal Trade Commission took action against the 3 largest pharmacy benefit managers. The agency says the companies artificially inflated insulin prices, resulting in patients paying more for the medication. The companies are CVS Caremark, Cigna's Express Scripts, and United Healthcare Group's OptumRx. The FTC alleges the companies and their affiliated group purchasing organizations built a system that prioritizes high rebates from drug manufacturers that allegedly excluded available insulin products with lower prices in favor of these higher-priced insulin products. And then they were provided with the higher rebates.
Nippon Steel's vice chairman said today they plan to sell at least $211 million in assets this fiscal year to manage debt. They're waiting for the outcome of their $14.9 billion bid for U.S. Steel. Nippon Steel agreed with 3 Japanese megabanks for $16 billion in loans to fund the acquisition of U.S. Steel. That was earlier this year. The deal is facing political opposition in the U.S. ahead of the November 5th presidential elections. Nippon Steel plans to sell $211 million in assets. This includes real estate and inventory. The move is aimed at improving capital efficiency in the U.S. Steel takeover. The Japanese company's debt-to-equity ratio is expected to increase due to this deal. Both companies aim to close the deal by the end of December, pending approvals. An intense slip and slide down a rain-soaked cliffside, which could have cost a hiker his life. It will leave you breathless, and it was all caught on camera. Take a look. A hiker's terrifying brush with death was caught on camera after he slipped on a rain-soaked cliffside in China. 42-year-old Yang Meng was hiking up an eastern province mountain when he suddenly slipped, sliding helplessly down the rocky cliffside while his 360-degree camera recorded all of it. The hiker's fall was miraculously stopped by some cliffside shrubs, thankfully, and that saved his life, leaving him instead with only scrapes and bruises. Meng says the experience gave him cause to reflect on life, but says he's driven to explore even more than before now, despite his horrifying mountainside slide. Coming up, Ukraine receiving a $39 billion loan from the European Union. Despite 2.5 years of devastating war, the country's economy may be performing well. That and more after this break.
Tangazo hili linahusu njaa. Tarajia kuona watoto wakiwa na njaa katika maeneo haya. Mambo yalikuwa bora kwa miaka mingi. Tuliweza kupigana na njaa na watoto wachache walikufa. Lakini sasa mambo yamebadilika na kwa mabaya zaidi. Hii ni kwa sababu wakati huu ukame umeangamiza zaidi.
Через війни та конфлікти ми мусимо залишати наші домівки і всі наші речі. Ми навіть не маємо їжі. Тому нам потрібна ваша допомога.
Millions of children are fighting to survive due to inequality, conflict, poverty, and the climate crisis. Save the Children is working alongside communities to provide a better life for children. And there's a way you can help. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We urgently need 1,000 new monthly donors in the next 30 days to help the children we support around the world. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection, plus so much more that a child needs, by calling right now and giving just $10 a month.
Ви можете допомогти голодуючим родинам вижити.
All we need are 1,000 monthly donors in the next 30 days. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
Потребують вашої допомоги.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Carrie Dunst.
The Georgia Board of Elections approves new voting rules requiring that paper ballots be hand-counted on Election Day.
The new policy comes just 45 days before the election. We have the details next.
Israel has confirmed the killing of a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted airstrike near Beirut. The commander was wanted by the U.S. for his role in deadly bombing attacks in the 1980s.
The European Commission president announced that the EU will lend Ukraine nearly $40 million as part of a plan by G7 member countries.
After 2.5 years of war, how is Ukraine's economy doing? We'll have the details for you.
The Biden administration looks to power up battery manufacturing in the U.S. Billions in awards announced today to boost domestic production.
Buffalo Bills fans can join the team to help fund the team's new stadium. An opportunity opened up this week to contribute to construction and make a report on your investment.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Israel Defense Forces have reported killing a high-level Hezbollah terrorist in Lebanon. His name is Ibrahim Akil.
He and other high-level Hezbollah operatives were killed today in an airstrike in Beirut. Akil was the head of Hezbollah's operations unit, and he was also responsible for bombing attacks, air defense, and other military fields. Akil was wanted by the United States for his role in the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. That attack killed 63 people. He was also wanted for his role in the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks that killed 241 U.S. service members.
Israel said Akil was currently planning another terrorist attack for Hezbollah terrorists to infiltrate Israeli communities and murder innocent civilians. Hezbollah, meanwhile, escalated their rocket fire at Israel that began shortly after October 7th. It fired over 100 rockets across the border today.
A Kentucky sheriff was taken into custody after he allegedly shot and killed a judge right in court. According to local media reports, Letcher County Sheriff Mickey Steins walked into the courthouse yesterday and asked to speak with District Judge Kevin Mullins. The two allegedly went into Mullins' office, where shots were later heard. Steins reportedly walked out of the office and then surrendered to police. He has been charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree. Police have not yet given a motive for the shooting, however.
The European Commission president is in Ukraine today. Ursula von der Leyen announced that the EU will lend Ukraine almost $40 million. It's part of a plan made by member countries of the Group of Seven. The G7 members are planning to use profits from frozen Russian assets for the loan.
This is a huge step forward. We are now confident that we can deliver this loan to Ukraine very quickly. A loan that is backed by the windfall profits from immobilized Russian assets.
Russia is already commenting on the decision to use profits from its frozen assets. A Kremlin spokesman said that the EU had, quote, lost its mind. The spokesperson said the move will escalate tensions between Russia and the EU. Also at today's meeting in the Ukraine, President Zelensky gave more details about what he calls his, quote, victory plan. He sets to present the full plan while in the U.S. next week.
All the details of the peace plan I will discuss first of all with the President of the United States. Most of the decisions from the plan depend specifically on him. The entire plan is predicated upon quick decisions from our partners. The plan is predicated upon decisions which should take place from October to December.
Multiple U.S. departments, such as the Pentagon and the State Department, have previously said they were briefed on the Ukraine plan. The agency said the U.S. agrees with parts of the plan that they've seen so far, but they added that to see all of the details, they must see all the details first before they can confirm U.S. support. Zelensky previously said his victory plan could achieve lasting peace in the Ukraine.
This morning, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would see the U.S. Secret Service protection of presidential candidates increased. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez joins us now with more on this story. Luis, what is the Enhanced Presidential Security Act that just passed on the House floor?
Well, this bill that was voted on this morning and passed unanimously would see the Secret Service protection detail of presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates be at the same level as the president and the vice president. So it's interesting to see that 405 congressmen voted for this bill. No one voted against it. That also means that 30 congressmen did not vote today, whether they were not present or for other reasons. It will also be interesting to see if the Senate picks up this bill and if it's passed in the Senate, whether the president will sign it. But it's, of course, part of what's going on, ongoing investigations, the attempted assassinations of former President Donald Trump, and the concern shared by lawmakers to increase the security detail of the presidential candidate of both parties.
And we just heard there the director of the Secret Service giving an update on the investigations into the Trump assassination attempts. Do you have more on that? What's the status in Congress on these ongoing investigations?
Well, the House of Representatives has a bipartisan task force that was voted and passed also unanimously. Today, I spoke with the Democratic ranking member of that task force, Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado. Let's listen to what he had to say about the next steps in this investigation.
The task force has asked for additional resources because we want this to be timely. We're going to need more lawyers, more staff to conduct the investigation and do those interviews. And that does require a House vote to do it.
So most likely next week we will see a vote on the House floor to expand the scope of the bipartisan task force in the House of Representatives investigating the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump to include the second alleged attempt that we saw last week in Florida. And we also heard from Congressman Jason Crow that they will ask for more resources, staff, and lawyers. There's another investigation in the House, an independent investigation led by Congressman Corey Mills of Florida with a group of fellow Republican congressmen. Let's listen what he had to say about the investigations thus far. We have confidence in the task force investigation. You're conducting your own independent review of the assassination attempts. Do you have confidence that they're going to do a good job?
Well, it's difficult for any independent investigation task force or even our Florida governor from doing investigations when you got the FBI and others who are unwilling to cooperate. There's information that still needs to be led, and that's why we're relying so heavily on our whistleblowers.
It will also be interesting to see if next week, during the last days of Congress being in session, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate will include in their proposal of a continuing resolution to fund government through an extended period of time more funding for the Department of Homeland Security to then, of course, help the Secret Service meet the gap in personnel and technical assets that Acting Director Ronald Rowe mentioned today during the press conference. Back to you.
All right, Luis, thank you reporting there from Washington, D.C.
The U.S. Supreme Court has declined a request from the Green Party to get Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein onto the ballot in the battleground state of Nevada. The Green Party argued its candidates were ripped from the ballot in Nevada because campaign workers used an incorrect form to collect the signatures needed to ensure Stein's place onto the ballot. In filings this week, Nevada election officials said it was too late to interrupt the ballot printing for the November election because ballots for military and overseas voters must be mailed by Saturday under federal law. A lower court in the state sided with the Green Party, but the Nevada Supreme Court ruled this month that Stein should be kept off the ballot. The state Supreme Court said the Nevada Secretary of State's office provided the Green Party with the incorrect form used in the signature collection process, which was a mistake. Georgia's election board voted today on a new hand count rule. The policy requires millions of ballots to be manually tallied. The state election board convened a meeting this morning.
History is watching. The world is watching. What we do here today matters, and what we do here today is important. The idea that you're not going to listen to the individuals that are charged with conducting elections is absurd to me. For the board members that want to implement these rules, because they're most likely going to implement them because they have the numbers, I challenge you to go into any county in the state of Georgia and to do the rules that you're passing on today. Work as a poll worker all day and then count the ballots.
Most of the recently enacted and proposed rules have been brought by presumably well-meaning citizens who are in many cases not electoral professionals or experts. Most of their concerns are based on highly unlikely what-if scenarios rather than anything evidence-based. There is a fine line between citizen oversight and citizen micromanagement. And some of these rules, particularly those that specify how many ballots should be in a pile for counting, for example, clearly cross that line.
The rule requires 3 poll workers in each of Georgia's 6,500 precincts to open sealed ballot boxes. They will then begin the hand counting, starting as soon as election night. Another rule requires a hand count for any ballot box with over 1,500 ballots during early voting. Georgia is the only state with this rule. Voting right advocates warn that this could cause delays, errors, and increase election challenges, while supporters say it will ensure ballot scanning machines are accurate.
Coming up, powering back up to power AI.
An energy company is working with Microsoft to relaunch a nuclear plant to help meet the tech company's increasing electricity demands.
And new signs of the United States direction with the drone industry as the shift away from Chinese drone manufacturing continues. That and more after this break.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little bit of that in their own life, of, you know, the steadfast calmness and something to hold on to. It's definitely an inner peace in the midst of something very chaotic, and for a lot of people right now, the whole world is very, very chaotic, so I guess that's another reason why so many people are very drawn to this.
For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us. Don, how's it going?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Yeah, very well. What do you have for us today?
All right, let me get started on the first story here. So the first ever restart of its kind to power artificial intelligence, Constellation Energy says it has signed a deal with Microsoft to revive its 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. The power generated would be sold to Microsoft. This shows the surge in electricity demand coming from tech companies needed for data centers to expand artificial intelligence, as well as cloud computing and more. 3 Mile Island is a separate unit from one that suffered a partial meltdown in the late 70s. The goal here is to bring the plant back online in 2028. But the relaunch would have to be approved by federal, state, and local officials. Now, huddle up, Buffalo Bills fans. The team's new stadium can be partially fan-funded. On Monday, everyday investors will be given the opportunity to order a municipal bond to go toward construction. The state of New York and Erie County, where the stadium is being built, have agreed to pay $850 million for the stadium. The Buffalo Bills will pay the rest. The bond offering website notes that the AA rated bonds will be made through a broker. It also has to be for a minimum of $5,000. Now, the opportunity will open up to institutional investors as well on Tuesday. Machinery maker Caterpillar is the latest company to pull back on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. In an internal memo, the company introduced new guidelines that refocus various employee programs on core business goals. It included a mandate that senior management approve external speakers, concentrate employee training on high performance, and establish new rules for employee resource groups. Caterpillar did not respond to a request for comment on the changes, though. The other companies that have recently revised the DEI policies include John Deere, Tractor Supply Ford, Harley-Davidson, Lowe's, and Molson Coors, that is. So Nike on Tuesday said that former executive Elliott Hill will rejoin the company to succeed John Donahoe as president and CEO. The sportswear giant is shaking up its leadership amid efforts to revive sales and battle rising competition. Take a look.
On Thursday, Nike announced plans to toss out its president and CEO John Donahoe as demand falters for the brand's sneakers. He'll be replaced by former senior executive Elliott Hill, who will take over next month. Nike's shares rose in after-hours trading after the news. Nike's strategy under Donahoe over the past few years, driving customers directly to its own stores and websites, cutting out retailers in the middle, worked at first. Under his lead, Nike exceeded $50 billion in annual sales last year, partly helped by soaring demand for sportswear after the pandemic. But growth lost steam, and Nike seemed to lack new and appealing products. Customers coveted newer and more fashionable brands like On and Hoka. Meanwhile, Nike's Air Jordan shoes had been slipping on the resale market last year. Soon, the company undertook a $2 billion cost-cutting plan, and that included layoffs. In June, Nike forecast a surprise drop in fiscal 2025 revenue, which it blamed on inflation taking a toll on demand and a slower China market. Analysts say Nike's new leadership has to repair relationships with retail partners after Donahoe's tenure. The company had dropped some of those retailers, creating what one analyst called ill will towards Nike. Analysts also say Elliott Hill, who began his career fostering relationships with sporting goods stores to sell Nike products, is a great pick.
And a second round of EV funding announced. The Biden administration is awarding more than $3 billion to U.S. companies. This is to boost domestic production of materials for electric vehicles and reduce reliance on China. The second round of grants will fund a total of 25 projects in 14 states, and this is part of the Biden administration's effort to increase EV production and sales and build up U.S. manufacturing. And a White House economic advisor said the move gets the U.S. closer to its goal of an end-to-end supply chain for batteries and reducing China's dominance in the sector. Meanwhile, Mercedes is the latest car company to throw on its hazard lights as it hits rough terrain in China's car market. The luxury car maker is joined by BMW in cutting its earnings guidance for the year. As a result, Mercedes shares dropped to a near two-year low. Both Germany car makers said the downshifts were over slumping sales in the world's largest car market. Mercedes said that affluent customers in China have grown more cautious amid a prolonged property market slump. Car makers are also dealing with the costly transition to EV and increased local competition. China's BYD is now the market leader. And Ukraine is now 2.5 years into a devastating war, and its economy is performing well, according to analysts and Ukrainians. Here's the story.
Ukraine's front lines, destruction and mayhem. But on the home front, families peacefully shop for groceries, supermarket shelves full.
The stores are full of products. We're talking about produce, we're talking about clothing, we're talking about phones, computers, electronics of any kind.
Ukrainian Vladimir Gendelman says despite the occasional bombing, people live their lives as if everything were normal. His firm, called Company Folders, has employees in Ukraine. He says Ukrainians are doing well.
There was a short period of time when there was shortage of things, but right now everything is available. Internet is not always available. Electricity is not always available. Meaning it's usually on, but then sometimes it cuts out.
Ukraine's GDP has grown dramatically since the invasion. Inflation is down to 7.5%. Policy analyst Demetrius Flaudas says this is because of
internal resilience and the fact that the Ukrainians, the state themselves, but also the people, because it has to boil down to the people, have tried to make sure that they will withstand.
Flautas says some air raid sirens don't even bother some of the citizens, and that Ukraine's western half especially seems normal. Another reason.
It has to do with significant financing from outside. There has been 240 billion euros that has been given to Ukraine from all donors around the world.
Flautas says this money comes in the form of both military and fiscal aid. The EU just pledged a $39 billion loan to Ukraine on Friday.
This loan will flow straight into your national budget.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responds that the money will be spent on energy and defense, as well as bomb shelters for children in schools, kindergartens, and universities.
Representatives from U.S. drone and defense industries will be meeting in Taiwan to discuss the future of drone development with less reliance on China. NTD Sean Marshall has more.
The United States is increasing its collaboration with Taiwan in the drone manufacturing industry. China's drone industry is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and the U.S. considers this a national security threat. China is a major global supplier of drone products and parts. Executives from 26 U.S. drone and anti-drone companies will be in Taiwan's capital on Sunday for 3 days of meetings with Taiwanese counterparts, military officials, and researchers. U.S. Commerce Department officials will be attending along with members of the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Unit and Dev Shinoy, who leads the Defense Department's Microelectronics Research and Engineering. The worldwide drone market as of June amounts to $4.3 billion. And since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian fundraising efforts have netted $1 billion for the purchase of drones. Taiwanese Defense Minister Wellington Koo described the U.S. mission as an opportunity for us to become part of their supply chain and do co-production. He also said as the U.S. is putting such emphasis on removing China from supply chains, and because drones can be dual-use products, a lot of other players will have to integrate their supply chains. The U.S. House took a step forward on September 10th with the passage of the Countering CCP Drones Act, which emphasizes the growing need for Chinese drone manufacturing replacements. The Countering CC Drones Act is highly contested by many private companies and public agencies in the U.S., since the bill would impact industries like agriculture, emergency services, and infrastructure. They believe a complete ban could have a devastating effect on commercial operations and public safety. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
A new Federal Trade Commission staff report says major social media and video streaming services conducted vast surveillance of users to monetize their personal information. The report analyzed how 9 companies, including Meta, YouTube, and TikTok, collect data and use them. The FTC said that while the companies make a lot of money by harvesting personal data, it can put people's privacy in danger and expose them to things like identity theft and stalking. The report also said that several of the firms failed to adequately protect children and teens. The FTC recommends that companies limit data collection and sharing and restrict targeted advertising and improve protections for teens. It also said that Congress should pass federal privacy legislation to address these issues. And Delta Airlines said yesterday it's going to pause flights between New York, JFK, and Tel Aviv until December 31st. This is due to rising security concerns in the Middle East. The airline said a travel waiver has been issued. It advised customers to be prepared for possible changes to the Tel Aviv flight schedule. This includes more cancellations. Concerns over a wider conflict in the Middle East have led international airlines to suspend flights to the region and avoid certain airspaces. And the Dodgers' Shohei Ohtani entered the history books with one of the greatest performances in the history of Major League Baseball. He became the first player to enter the hallowed 50-50 club. So that's 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in a single season. In a 20-4 thrashing of the Miami Marlins, Ohtani hit 3 home runs. This not only catapulted Ohtani into the 50-50 club, but secured the Dodgers a spot in the playoffs. The closest anyone has ever had to come to the 50-50 club before this was Ronald Acuna, who stole 73 bases and hit 41 homers for the Braves in 2023. And before him, Alex Rodriguez hit 42 home runs and stole 46 bases in 1998. This was Ohtani's 150th game. He had already become the fastest player to reach 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases in just a season, in just 126 games. Previously, Ohtani hit 46 home runs for the Los Angeles Angels in the American League in 2021. After making history yesterday, he said he was probably the most surprised person there. All right, with that, all the stories today for Business Matters. Back to you guys, Carrie and Fiona.
Lot to dig into there. Joining the prestigious 50-50 club in such a short amount of time. Ohtani seems to be really destined for greatness.
Here's an interesting fact on that, though. So I was talking to Dave Martin, our sports correspondent, earlier today, and he said maybe Ohtani actually had a little bit of help entering into that club, because what Dave said during that interview to us was that they actually made the plates a little bit bigger, and they changed the rules a little bit to promote people to try to steal bases, so that maybe made it a little bit easier to join that club.
A little inside baseball there from our sports analyst, Dave Martin. Always look forward to his reports with Tiffany in the evening news. Thanks for the report, Don.
Thank you.
Coming up, Uncommitted National Movement will not endorse Vice President Kamala Harris for president. It's the group that staged a protest vote against President Biden over his stand on the war in Gaza. NTD's Kevin Hogan explains how this could impact the race.
سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خوشکو دایکانی ازدی اما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریا بشه که دگره با و حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كراقوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار في ذنب وباوان رحمنا
ودمنا سؤالان من خادران نزل باوان وستم بس نا وانا قبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبري تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبري
وحشیگری کی توا عیار ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده کری اما نه روزانه دست فروشیده کری.
اليوم التوزيع كل الرصيد.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. One in 3 adults has prediabetes, and you could be one of them. There are usually no signs for prediabetes, so it's important to understand your risk. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Leadership within the Uncommitted national movement is not endorsing Kamala Harris for president. The pro-Palestinian group says she didn't give it commitments needed to win their endorsement. The group mobilized a protest vote against President Biden in the Democratic primary election. To expand this discussion further, we're joined by NTD's Kevin Hogan. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me, Kerry.
So to kick off, why isn't the Uncommitted movement backing Harris?
So this is a failure by Harris to win a key endorsement. Of course, the big news is that they're not endorsing Harris. The Uncommitted movement is not endorsing any candidate, not former President Trump for obvious reasons, very supportive of Israel, and not any third-party candidate. The Uncommitted movement is primarily concerned with the human rights and the well-being of Palestinians. They want a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And if you remember, on October 7th last year, about a year ago, Hamas terrorists killed about 1,200 people in a horrific terrorist attack in Israel, and that started the war in Gaza. Now, the terrorist-run Gaza Health Ministry says that since the war broke out, over 40,000 Palestinians have died. Of course, we can't verify those numbers, but if you look back, the senior Biden administration official said that since October 7th, the U.S. has sent Israel about $6.5 billion in security assistance. And one of the founders, Layla Al-Abed, says that Harris has not shifted her policy away from that of President Biden, who took a pro-Israel stance, of course, at least in part, by authorizing weapons sales to Israel, for example, even sidestepping Congress, like in December last year, when they chose to sell about $150 million of hardware, things like fuses, so that Israel could use the ammo that it bought previously from the United States. Now, Harris has not committed to an arms embargo on Israel. That's something that the Uncommitted group has asked for, and the background here is that delegates at the DNC, who are part of this Uncommitted movement, staged a sit-in outside the United Center because they were not granted their request for a Palestinian American to speak. And what's more, the Uncommitted group says Harris did not meet their demand to speak with them and Palestinian Americans in Michigan who know people killed in Gaza. So that's the main reason why they haven't endorsed Harris.
Okay, well, this race really is very close, so really every vote counts here. But how, with this this lack of endorsement for Kamala Harris, how is that going to affect this whole election?
Oh, absolutely. Well, this group has led the initiative, as you remember, that saw over 100,000 voters in Michigan's Democratic primary vote for Uncommitted, and presumably those votes would have gone to President Biden. So if these voters pick a different candidate or just stay home, because remember, there's the ballot box and there's also the couch. So voter turnout is extremely important. That could seriously affect the margins in this crucial swing state. And the group is discouraging those who align with its values from voting for other candidates like Trump that we mentioned or other third-party candidates. And keep in mind, Harris's campaign says that she does support the deals on the table for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and deals to get all the hostages back home.
Michigan being a swing state, it seems like this is becoming quite controversial. Trump being clearly staunch Israel supporter seems like the better alternative for people of their viewpoints. So how will the Uncommitted movement vote, do you think?
Well, you could imagine that, if they have a couple options, either not voting for anyone, voting for Harris or Trump, the best person that would align closest would be Harris, but it doesn't align enough, thus this lack of an endorsement here. And so first of all, we see the leaders, they're saying that it would not be appropriate to tell voters how to vote in their, who may have, personal ties to people that may be in Gaza or, Palestinians that they know. So this is something that, they're not going to immediately just jump the gun and say, all right, you have to follow our lead. This is our endorsement. But for example, if we look at how the actual leaders of the Uncommitted movement are going to vote, well, Layla Al-Abed, she has family in the West Bank, for example, and she's saying that, every time she's asked that question about who to vote for, it feels like to her that she's being asked that question at a funeral. Because you can imagine for her, it's a difficult spot because she feels probably that if she votes for Harris, she's fueling Israel's war in Gaza, thus leading to, more civilian casualties that may happen as they hunt down these terrorists who are hiding behind civilians. And then at the same time, if she votes for no one, that may put Trump in office. And you can imagine that that would be further from their goals. And there's also another founder, Abbas Alawiya. He does plan to vote for Harris. So imagine that. So they're not endorsing Harris, but one of the founders is voting for him, and he said that it's not a love letter, this vote. It's just a chess move. So he's looking at it from this point of view, that Harris does not share his anti-war stance on this issue, but he's concerned that if there's a Trump presidency, then that could lead to continued support for Israel with respect to its military operations in Gaza.
Okay, well, Kevin, clearly there are some differing opinions within this movement itself. And in light of all of these things you've just mentioned, what exactly is this movement's goal right now?
Well, you can imagine that if they're trying to go for long-term gains instead of short-term goals here, because they want national parties to pay attention. They want them to take them seriously. And if they just give their endorsements out for nothing, they probably can't achieve that goal in the long run. And for this election, it's leverage. Alawiya has told Harris that if she earns their endorsement, then he's going to mobilize for them. Remember, that's 100,000 voters that they have at their reach. And that's in a swing state, Michigan, that has very tight race right now. And it could be one of the states that decide this election. I mean, think about it. Biden lost the uncommitted vote in a couple cities in Wayne County, Michigan, and that's home to a large Arab American population.
It's another fascinating lens as the suspense builds towards Election Day. Thanks for that report, Kevin.
Welcome.
An update on the controversy surrounding apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado. Right outside of Denver, city officials and residents are pushing back against claims of a Venezuelan gang takeover. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with a former Immigration and Customs Enforcement director who recently helped move out an elderly woman who said she was under siege.
Viral video showing armed men at an apartment complex sparked fears, even gaining attention from Elon Musk and former President Trump. The videos intensified fears the Tren de Aragua gang was in control of the 6-building complex. Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman and interim police chief Heather Morris insist there's no gang control at the building. But police have linked 10 people in Aurora to the Tren de Aragua and arrested 6 of them, including suspects in a July attempted homicide. In late June, a law firm reported to the city of Aurora that Venezuelan gang members had taken over the Aurora multifamily properties. The report said they had threatened the property manager's life, were armed with assault rifles, and demanded a joint operation agreement from the owners. Republican congressional candidate John Fabricatore is a former ICE director for all of Colorado and Wyoming. He says residents have been calling for help, but can't get the Aurora Police Department to come out at nighttime.
There's gunshots every night. Cars have multiple bullet holes in them. There's drug deals going on in broad daylight. The police come through during the day. As soon as the police start to roll into that area, the drug dealers disappear, the gang members disappear. They've got lookouts on rooftops. So anytime a police officer gets within a few blocks of there, they're already hiding by the time the police get on scene.
The congressional candidate discusses a woman they recently helped move.
They were coming up to her door, trying to extort money from her. They wanted the keys to her apartment. What they do is they gather up keys to everyone's apartment. They want to be in control. They want people paying rent to them and not the landlords.
Gunshots can be heard here at a recently shut down complex where Fabricatore says gang members were extorting people.
See, this is what the city's doing. The city is coming down and just shutting the whole building down, and they're putting people out on the street. Instead of dealing with the crime problem, the city is just coming down, shutting down the apartment complex and telling people they need to move out.
Fabricatore sees the current policy for illegal immigration as a major factor behind situations like Aurora.
Many of these young men that are coming up here have been in gangs in Venezuela. Their way of life in Venezuela their job was to steal and rob, and this is what they know. And then they come here to the United States, and the pot of gold is even bigger.
NTD contacted the Aurora Police Department for comment. On allegedly not responding to nighttime calls, they say police must prioritize responding to life-threatening emergencies first. They say police are expected at a minimum to make phone contact with a reporting party. Police say they have received claims and allegations about stolen rent money dating back about a year, but have not yet established probable cause or made any arrests on those reports. On the takeover allegations, they are aware of documented gang members residing at all 3 CBZ management properties in Aurora, but have not seen evidence of a takeover. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The families of 6 workers who died in the March collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore filed lawsuits today. They're suing the owner and operator of the cargo ship that hit the bridge. The families filed lawsuits in Maryland federal court and are seeking unspecified damages from the ship's owner and manager. They claim the companies negligently allowed the ship to leave Baltimore despite knowing that it had mechanical issues. Another worker who survived the collapse also filed a lawsuit today. He's seeking damages for his injuries. His lawsuit says he was in his truck when it fell into the river from the bridge. A spokesperson for the company said the lawsuit was expected before a September deadline, but did not comment on the case itself. Nippon Steel's vice chairman said today that they plan to sell at least $211 million in assets this fiscal year to manage debt.
That's right. They're waiting for the outcome of their $14.9 billion bid for U.S. Steel.
Nippon Steel agreed with 3 Japanese megabanks for $16 billion in loans to fund the acquisition of U.S. Steel. That was earlier this year. The deal is facing political opposition now in the U.S. ahead of the November 5th presidential elections. Nippon Steel plans to sell $211 million in assets. This includes real estate and inventory.
The move is aimed at improving capital efficiency in the U.S. Steel takeover. The Japanese company's debt-to-equity ratio is expected to increase due to this deal. Both companies aim to close the deal by the end of December, pending approval.
In France, Parliament will vote on whether to impeach President Emmanuel Macron. It's the first vote of its kind in France's history, but it is not likely to succeed.
That's right. The vote puts even more pressure on Macron. NTD's international correspondent David Vives has this story.
Impeachment proceedings against French President Emmanuel Macron moved
First of all, the
forward.
president must either leave or choose a prime minister from within our ranks. The Constitution gives the president some prerogatives.
Democracy. Macron refused to appoint the coalition's candidate as prime minister. That's despite their alliance winning the most seats in July's elections. Macron chose conservative Michel Barnier instead. The impeachment process has passed the first step, but political commentators say it will likely fail in the end.
To put it simply, there's no chance this will come to anything. It would take a significant majority, and most of the political parties have already made it clear that they will not support impeachment.
Legal expert Margotti says there's only one way an impeachment procedure could pass. Prime Minister Barnier hasn't filled any top government positions yet.
If the President of the Republic commits particularly serious acts, like particularly serious legal violations, of course he can be removed from office for these acts. He can even be tried afterwards, once his duties have come to an end, for these acts.
Recent media reports suggest there could be a deal on the table. Ministers would be chosen from centrist and conservative parties. If he can't put a government together soon, Barnier could face pressure to resign. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
When we come back, artists flock to Venice for its annual Glass Week.
And we look inside a 700-year-old furnace to learn the history of traditional Venetian glassmaking. That and more after this break.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org. Working together, we can end hunger in America.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. Once you get there, twice the work. Twice the surprises.
Just try it.
But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling.
I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
Welcome back. We go to southern Italy, and it's proud of its world-renowned buffalo mozzarella. Its protected status means it can't be produced anywhere else. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest on the nation's efforts to pass its cheese-making tradition to the next generation.
White balls of cheese roll off the production line. But this isn't just any cheese. It's mozzarella di bufala campana, also known as buffalo mozzarella. The cheese can only be made in Campania, a region in southern Italy. This dairy product is made exclusively from the milk of buffaloes.
The added value of our products, what the final consumer sees, is precisely the connection with the territory and the respect of the product specification. These are the elements that differentiate us from other products, which may also be very good, but we have all these characteristics to preserve.
The buffalo milk is transformed into a spun curd, which is then broken into smaller balls. This process is called mozzare in Italian, which means cutting off.
Our mozzarella di bufala campana is a product that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. So, if we are good at preserving and maintaining this product exactly as it should be born and as it should be produced, we will have enormous success, because they really ask us for it all over the world.
The milk comes from local buffalo that live in the perfect territory and climate. Their diet is a mash of alfalfa hay, soy, and corn grown in the area.
The buffalo would produce much less milk than a cow, but the characteristics of buffalo milk are much more concentrated. In fact, we have almost double the fat compared to cows and 10 to 15% more proteins.
For years, exports to Switzerland, Spain, Germany, the UK, and the United States have been on the rise. Even France, known for its cheese industry, is the main destination country for exports.
It is clear that France gives us great satisfaction, because going to sell a cheese to the French is a beautiful satisfaction. A year and a half ago, news came out that the consumption of Italian mozzarella in France had surpassed that of Camembert. The French are attentive consumers and great connoisseurs of cheese.
Classes ensure the mozzarella making tradition lives on. The courses for students have been running since 2017. Over 5 to 6 months, instructors revealed the know-how of mozzarella production to the next generation.
We pass on our recipes and our experiences because it is a path that is enriched over time with experience, technique, secrets, and so on. Let's say that we are happy to give these guys the opportunity to make high-quality products.
With strong demand for buffalo mozzarella, there's every reason to keep this tradition alive. Student Teresa Di Monaco explains.
We have the tools, but what an 80-year-old man who has done this job for 70 years knows will be completely lost, unless there are courses that teach how to use the machines and also give you empirical knowledge.
100 students have received diplomas so far. Around 93% of them have gone on to work in the industry. That means these buffalo will be roaming the fields of Campania for many years to come. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Oh my goodness, that looked amazing. Carrie, do you like cheese?
Yes, please. Friday night, typically pizza night in the Dunst household.
And you know what? Nothing better than mozzarella on pizza.
Indeed.
Now I guess we got to go to Venice to try that cheese. A company trip. All right. Still staying in Venice, Italy. It's known for many things, like cheese, as we just saw. Or rather, that's not in Venice, but that is in Italy. But of course, in Venice, it's also known for its winding canals, colorfully dressed gondoliers, and a long history of trade. But it is also renowned for its exquisite glass creations. To celebrate one of the city's oldest crafts, Venice is holding a week of exhibitions and workshops. Take a look.
Glassmakers, artists, and fans of glass creations are flocking to Venice to have a peek into the famed Murano furnaces. It's here that the most precious works of Venetian glass are created.
Behind every single piece, beyond the various processes, there is so much sacrifice, so much.
The city is holding the 8th edition of Venice Glass Week. The festival is an opportunity for glassmakers and artists from all over the world to exhibit their work and to learn a few secrets of the trade. Designers and visitors can enter the furnaces and see the master glassmakers at work. One furnace has been carrying on the tradition since 1295. The master glassmaker here has been working with glass for more than 40 years.
I think Venice and glass go very well together. It is part of our heritage, our history, our culture, and I could say it's part of the luxury of Venice. Venice has lived in luxury for centuries, so I am proud to have embarked on this path, this work.
The art of glassmaking in Murano dates back to the 8th century. It peaked in popularity during the 15th and 16th centuries under the Venetian Republic. The island's glassmakers supplied glass to royal courts throughout Europe, and their wares were traded by Venetian members to customers in the Middle East and Asia. Glassmaking was limited to the island of Murano to prevent fires caused by the furnaces from destroying the city. It also helped to preserve glassmakers' secrets. In recent years, designers and artists have been descending on Venice during the Glass Week.
Well, there are many reasons, I think, why Venice is known for its glass. Obviously, a 1,000-year history is completely extraordinary, but the concentration of talent and skill and knowledge, know-how on one island is completely remarkable.
This year's organizers of the exhibition chose from among 300 submissions from 45 countries. They come not just to display their creations and perfect new techniques, but to learn a mastery passed down through generations.
Well, I guess we've been to two different places in Italy now, showcasing their artisans for food as well as blown glass. Really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think I should take this as a sign and go off to Italy for a week or two. That glass was absolutely beautiful. And I heard it's actually very hard to blow glass. I would like to try.
Yeah, what a skill. The various forms and textures they can get, really just one of a kind. Nothing compares to handmade.
Yeah, absolutely right. Totally agree there. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom.
Please join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'm Carrie Dunst.
And I am Fiona G. See you next week and have a wonderful weekend.